My 600-pound life situation that went out of hand. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Mind Hub. Most people who show up on my 600-pound life have let their weight get totally out of control prior to their appearances, but these my 600-pound life situations that went out of hand really take the cake. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Mind Hub. Also, comment heavyweights and we'll give a lucky winner a shout out in the next video. 10. Robert Boucher.
Native struggled with compulsive eating and food addiction, weighing 842 pounds at the time of filming.
When Robert Boucher first made his appearance on My 600-Pound Life, it was clear that he had some serious issues to work through. The guy was enormous, weighing just under 850 pounds. He was also totally addicted to painkillers and was humble enough to admit that fact to Dr.now. His compulsive eating was, contrary to what most people go through, more damaging than his prescription drug addiction, which is really saying a lot. He managed to rein in his overeating issues with the help of his family and his fiancée. With his loved ones in his corner and rooting for him, along with the help of Dr.now, he went all out and managed to lose 350 pounds during his time on the show. That weight also included a ridiculously large lymphedema. He managed to keep things going for a period of time after he pulled off his big feat, but ended up slipping not too long afterward. Even though he was a huge success story with a new lease on life, he couldn't get over his chronic depression. Boucher ended up getting hooked on painkillers once again, going out of his way to cause himself enough harm that he could get legit prescriptions to keep his habit up. Boucher even tore his stitches out at one point so that the doctor would hook him up. This course of action was bound to go badly for him. His body finally gave out on him, with Boucher succumbing to a heart attack back in November 2017. It's clear that he was constantly battling demons, which helped contribute to his food and drug addictions. His death was sad for many fans of the show, but it should go without saying that it wasn't much of a surprise considering the uphill battle he was facing. 9. The Asante Brothers.
And I start ranting and raving until I do get what I want. I just want what I want, that's it.
These brothers ended up being huge hits, so to speak, when they pooped up on My 600-Pound Life. Dr.now did what he could to get the brothers to settle their long-lasting feud with each other, but the brothers weren't ready to put their differences aside. Stephen Asante was far the bigger instigator out of the two and really put everybody through a lot of stress. To begin with, he made a point of making it look like he was doing his best to curb his eating habits, while simultaneously going behind everyone's back to continue stuffing his face. It seems that Justin Asante put up with the brunt of his abuse, but Stephen also tried his hand at trying to take advantage of the fact that his father cared about his well-being, even resulting to bullying his old man when he didn't get his way. He stole painkillers that his brother Justin had been prescribed due to the pain that he felt after his gastric bypass surgery. He also abused plenty of other drugs, shoving painkillers down his gullet like they were candy, which is something else that he guzzled with reckless abandon. Stephen finally pushed his brother so far that Justin had to leave the show because he simply couldn't take the abuse any longer, which is a serious shame. Justin really tried to turn his life around, but Stephen made it far too difficult for him to achieve meaningful results. Justin now lives in Rhode Island, opting to stay far away from his brother, who currently lives in Iowa. Stephen, surprisingly, is married now, and we hope that he doesn't put his wife through the same ordeal that he forced on his family. 8. Shawn Milliken.
When Shawn weighed 900 pounds. Over the course of his weight loss journey, he lost more than 400 pounds.
Shawn Milliken weighed a ridiculous 900 pounds when he teamed up with Dr.now on My 600-Pound Life. He wasn't able to get around on his own because of his massive size. Milliken was unable to stand for very long, and walking was pretty much out of the question when you first met him. Thanks to Dr.now, Milliken managed to shed a lot of weight, although he was still a pretty big guy when filming Wrapped. He continued to do everything that he could after he left the show. However, Dr.now helped Milliken get to the point where he could finally walk again, which was a huge step up, and kept up his training regime and his new diet, avoiding all things that he used to overindulge in. Things still didn't end great for Milliken, and he ran into a huge setback when his mother died due to renal failure in 2018. He ended up seriously depressed after that, as most children would be. The pair had been really close, and she was his biggest supporter, even when he was at his lowest points. The two had been living together at the time, and her death led to Milliken being forced to move out of his apartment, which disrupted his life in no small way. Milliken ended up getting an infection in 2019, which eventually ended his life when complications arose. He had been admitted to the hospital to treat his issues, but doctors were unable to get him back when he developed problems breathing. He was fairly young, only being 29 at the time of his death, which is pretty sad to say the least. 7. Penny Seger. One of Dr.now's patients who simply refused to help herself was Penny Seger. She lost 40 pounds right off the bat, being approved for weight loss surgery by Dr. Now, who was hopeful that she was on the road to recovery. That ended up getting tossed out the window, however, because she started gaining weight after the surgery was completed. It seems that someone was hooking her up with junk food, and Dr. Now decided that if she wasn't ready to put in the hard work needed to lose weight, then he couldn't do much to help her. Dr. Now parted ways with Seger, convinced that her eating habits would kill her sooner rather than later. 6. Kelli Mason. Kelli Mason wasn't doing all that well when she first met with Dr. Now. She suffered from high blood pressure, a serious blood clot, type 2 diabetes, arthritis, thyroid issues, reflux issues, and heart problems. All of this was directly due to her weight. She managed to lose around 200 pounds under Dr. Now's care, losing an additional 100 pounds after her weight loss surgery. When filming wrapped, she continued to keep up with exercise and her new diet, but it was all a little too late. She died from a heart attack while she was sleeping in 2019 because her body had already been through far too much. 5. James King. Being bedridden and unable to do anything to help himself, an 800-pound James King also suffered from cellulitis when he first appeared on My 600-Pound Life. His daughter had already dropped out of school to help care for her overweight dad, and his father was forced to refinance his home to get him to Houston to meet with Dr. Now. He was able to lose weight under supervision, but quickly gained the weight back when he was left to his own devices. When he was weighed a second time, it was found that he had even gained weight during his time on the show, reaching 840 pounds at that point. He was forced to leave the show, but Dr. Now kept in touch, even calling Adult Protective Services on his girlfriend when he found out that King's organs were failing due to her bringing him junk food while he was in the hospital. Dr. Now was eventually forced to cut ties with King because he simply refused to help himself and didn't seem to care about his health or his worried family members. 4. James Bonner.
This is no problem for LB Bonner.
6, 7.
Safe to say, everything about him is big.
James Bonner weighed around 650 pounds when he first showed up on My 600-Pound Life and was hailed as being one of the show's biggest success stories. He kept up with his prescribed diet and lost a lot of weight both on and off the show. Bonner also managed to amass a pretty die-hard following, with around 8,000 Facebook fans following him closely. Unfortunately, Bonner ended up passing away due to suicide in 2018 when he was 30 years old. He shot himself because he simply couldn't keep going, and his family later said that he faced a good amount of demons that made living a constant battle for him. That's a tragic way for anyone to go, and it's a shame that Bonner wasn't able to overcome his issues despite losing plenty of weight and seemingly turning his life around in a big way. 3. Janine Murray.
Hey, Doctor.
Hey, Shanae. See what I find.
Pretty.
After being molested when she was only a small kid, Janine Murray turned to food to help her deal with her issues. She was a voracious eater, reaching around 780 pounds. At that point, she was unable to do much for herself and couldn't even use the bathroom without exerting a ton of energy to do so. That's gotta be hard to live with, and Murray finally decided that something had to give. She got in touch with Dr. Now and asked for his help. Even though she tried hard to qualify for surgery, she wasn't able to lose enough weight in time because she simply couldn't keep up with Dr. Now's exercise schedule or the diet he had laid out for her. Her husband wasn't much help, as he actively talked her into ordering pizza and burgers to the hospital, where she was being kept under observation. He definitely should have been more supportive, and it seems like he's still happily pushing her to eat far more than she should. Dr. Now booted Murray off the show when it became clear to him that she wasn't ready to commit to a new lifestyle. She still keeps up with social media, although most of her posts are of her in the hospital. She's still ridiculously overweight, and we doubt that she's lost much weight at all, even though she claims to be making good progress. 2. Henry Foss.
But I know over the long term, it could be good to deal with a lot of this stuff for my emotional progress.
Being the subject of one of the most heart-wrenching episodes of My 600-Pound Life, Henry Foss just couldn't catch a break. He did everything that he could to try to lose all the weight he had gained, making an amazing transformation during his time on the show. He started out weighing around 750 pounds and shed enough weight to get himself down to an impressive 275 pounds. That just goes to show how dedicated he was to turning his life around, and people applauded him for it. All he wanted to do was lose enough weight to be able to make a positive impression at his high school reunion. He kept the weight off for a long time, showing no signs of going back to the size he used to be. Foss had been one of the show's biggest success stories, and his fans adored him for how far he had come while also staying positive and upbeat throughout the entire ordeal. Even though he was a new man, his past had taken a massive toll on his body, which wasn't able to hold out as long as everyone had hoped. He suffered from a setback while he was driving a bus and wasn't able to continue going even after he was rushed to the hospital. His cause of death was never publicly released, as his family didn't want to turn his death into a spectacle, choosing instead to keep things in the family. We can't argue with their point of view, and we're definitely saddened when we heard that Foss, despite all his efforts, wasn't able to enjoy his new life as a much thinner and happier man. 1. Mercedes Cephas. Mercedes Cephas ended up spiraling to the point where she couldn't cope with her issues when she was very young, which is what many people have said led to her gaining as much weight as she did. Eating was her coping strategy after her father began raping her repeatedly when she was only